My name is Jason Williams, aka JP Slouch, also known as Broom. I've been making music since I was a kid. I think around 8 years old, and it's my passion. Along the way, I've met up with some pretty interesting characters, all with their own unique stories, views, and talents. This podcast show celebrates those friends I've amassed in my many years of ups and downs in this crazy trip that we all call life. Join me as I go 4 drinks deep with JP Slouch and PALS. Alrighty, hey, what's up, E? How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Dude, you know how I'm doing. I'm doing 4 drinks deep. That's how I'm doing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Did you eat dinner already?
I just ate dinner. It's gonna be a beer dinner, I think, today.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
You have something to soak it up.
Oh, definitely. You know, I have my inner guts to soak it up. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast, Leah. I'm kind of changing it up this time. I'm usually with pals, but this time I decided to bring in one of our, our own cultured family members into here and everything.
Yep.
So tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hello, my name is Eliah, but I also go by Tasha Malan on social media. That's also my stage name. And I am Jason's, or I don't know if you go by JP or Jason, but I am JP's niece. So that's why I'm here. Yeah, I make music. I'm a student and yeah, just a creative individual overall, I'd say. Yeah, just living, surviving. So yeah.
Yeah, when you were a kid, I knew there was something super duper special about you because like when you were like I want to say when I first met you, you were like 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, how old were you? I think you were around like 4, maybe.
I was a little older than that. I think I was around 9, actually.
Okay, so like around 9.
Close enough. Close enough.
But yeah, but like you were like the most well-behaved 9-year-old I've ever seen in my life. Like you would like
Thank you.
Sit down with like crazy posture, and you would have like your knives and forks were like all like put out in the table.
I was proper.
You're a very proper kid, and I noticed you had an old soul even when you were like back in those days. You know what I mean? And like it was later on that I realized that you come from a long line of amazing artists. Like your father, a Grammy award-winning artist. Your uncle, an amazing musician, talented person. You know what I mean? And like
yes,
came down through you. So like as a kid, like what were the things that got you into art and the music? Because I'm sure you were surrounded by it even with your grandparents and everything on there. So tell me a little bit about how you growing up and what you went through in your life that got you into how you were doing. Because like I said, you were like a very old soul when I first met you.
thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I got that a lot. I don't really know what being an old soul really means, but I guess maybe like I did grow up being like an only child until I was around 10 when my sisters came into the picture. So I think like I always like adapted and I was always like someone that paid attention to what the adults were doing because of that, I think. And so I did get a lot of inspiration from like the older people in my life. So of course, like my parents, my family, and everything like that. But yeah, like you said, my dad is a musician. He's a pianist from Mexico. And yeah, so basically, I was born in Mexico. I was almost a year when my mom and me came back here. And then, like, when I was already, like, I think around 2, or it was like a couple years later, that's when my dad finally came to the country so that he could kind of pursue his music career and be like reunited with my mom and me. And so growing up, beyond that point, like, I was just always around his music journey. Like, and he really went from like, he started from the bottom, like, so to speak. Yeah, he would just do like any gig that he could get. Always had him practicing piano in my house. Like, some of my earliest memories like involve like him playing like music videos for me, like Thriller, which scared the living shit out of me. Um, or like just like practicing classical like piano in the room next door. So I kind of grew up always being able to see like what the life of an artist it looks like the behind the scenes kind of side of it. I always loved singing. From a like the moment I could sing, I was singing, and I was like, creativity kind of kept me entertained, especially as like an only child, at least at the time. Yeah, I just like really entertained myself that way, and I was always super passionate about it. I loved writing poetry and like writing little tunes in my head. One of the first songs that I ever recorded still exists out there. I don't know if you ever seen it.
I haven't. I need to get it. I need to get it, and I'll put it on.
I'm kind of scared to even mention it because I don't want anyone finding it. But
oh, come on, it's got to be put out. Come on.
It was so silly though. I was like 8 years old, and I wrote this little song, and my other uncle, helped me do a little music video. In the video, there's like this little girl that I didn't know, but she was just like my uncle's friend's like kid. So they were like, "Oh, throw her in there," and I remember being like, "No, like she doesn't understand my vision." Like, it was so silly, but yeah. So. she was a nice girl. Just it was so silly. And yeah, like I guess ever since then I just always like had it in my mind that I was gonna like put my music out there. And then in high school, that's when I dropped like my first actual single. The other one was kind of just like something fun that like I did with my dad and my uncle. Which shout out to them for helping me out with that. Because I really got to live my little like music video fantasy, which was really cool and fun, as you can imagine. But yeah, and then in high school, I dropped my first actual single, which I worked on at like the local Boys and Girls Club in Redwood City. One of my friend's older brothers ran the little studio that they had in the clubhouse. And I was like, why don't we just like make a little song? And so he made a beat, and that ended up birthing the song Brand New, which is my first ever like actual single. And that did pretty well. People really liked that song. And it was, yeah, I wrote it about just like my first breakup, I'm exposing myself right now.
No,
But
that's what this is all about. It's all about the exposure.
But yeah, so did that. Then I released Personal, which I had worked on since like after I finished Brand New. I started working on another song called Personal, which was my second single. And then I released that my freshman year of college. And yeah, a lot of people would always ask me like, "Oh, why aren't you releasing stuff more often?" And I think like for me, a lot of my music journey has been like more than actually doing it, it's been like I've had to learn to be patient because, you know, with juggling school and everything. And I also don't know how to do all of the production by myself. I know like there's some artists that I really admire that are like self-sufficient. They do all the mixing, mastering, and everything. I don't know how to do all that. I do really love to write, sing, come up with melodies. I'm really good at that stuff, but I'm still learning kind of the production stuff. My dad would help me out with some of that stuff. And you know, I'm not always with my dad because I don't live with him. So like a lot of it was like me having to like find the time and then going, and then progress with music. I'm sure JP, you know, it's like it takes a lot longer than people think. It's not just like going in there and then you like bust it out and then it's done and ready to go. Like it's a whole process. So yeah, for a long time I was like, like I feel like I'm not putting out stuff like quick enough, you know? After Personal, I was like, okay, like these first songs were cool. I like them. But as time went on, I was kind of like, I feel like I'm outgrowing this kind of sound that I was going for at the time. Or not as much that I was outgrowing it. I just feel like I had a better idea, like after doing those two songs, of what I wanted my sound to be. And so like I'm fine tuning that, and that's what I'm kind of doing now. And I'm working towards like a larger project slash album EP. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. That's why I've been gatekeeping my music recently. Like I haven't released anything since Personal because I'm trying to put out an actual project, not just like a single, which I had been doing up to now. But yeah, that's basically me.
Yeah, and that, it's kind of a neat idea to do that because, like, with me, what I've been doing is I just kind of like put stuff out, you know, and just putting it out there. And then a good friend of mine kind of told me, he's like, well, sometimes you got to keep that in and like hold it and then like put it out in a package, you know, in a package deal kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like, cause like that's what I used to love about putting out like 7 inches and putting out, you know, records and CDs and stuff. Cause you get the whole package that's like put together. It takes time. A lot of the songs that you've done before, like, you know, they could be like months, maybe even years older, right? So you listen to it back and by the time the album comes out, it's like, oh, that was such a period of a time. But it all comes together with like one cool package that way. And that's why I think it's really cool of you to like keep these songs under wraps and kind of release it a little bit later on when it's all ready to be put down. Because like sometimes when you release them, like a lot of times, it will kind of, in a sense, like maybe, I don't know, some people would say it would cheapen it out, you know, if you're just putting it out, you know, like it oversaturates the market for your sound. But going back, right, so when you first were starting, you were this young kid, old soul, meaning probably you were hanging out with more adults than kids, like you were saying, right? And your adults you hung out with were all artists and all like had like a kind of bohemian artist type of nature about them. So that's probably what I think is where you get your personality and how you got into, you said your creative writing and your music and stuff. Like what were some of the older artists that you listened to back in the days that kind of inspired you to do what you were doing? I know you said you listened to Michael Jackson's Thriller, which I did too. You know what I mean? I like watched that constantly. I loved it. You know how I am with horror films and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
that was like my jam.
Another one was another brick in the wall that I remember really vividly. That video is so spooky. I took a lot of inspiration from the music that my mom would play for me. Also my dad, like I remember my dad would always play like Latin jazz and stuff like that. And at the time I like didn't like it because I was like, oh, this all sounds the same, like this is whack. Or he would play like salsa and all that stuff. Now I have an appreciation for it, but at the time what I really liked to listen to was I listened to a lot of Alicia Keys. I remember my mom got me, I think she got me the Alicia Keys album, I think As I Am. And then I think she also got me like a Beyonce CD. So I would listen to a lot of like those early like R&B pop artists. And yeah, I remember like another artist was Shakira that I really liked. I remember I had like this little mini radio toy. Maybe anyone out there can remember it, but it's like a little toy radio, like this big, and it came with a little baby CDs like this big, and you would like plug them in, and it would just play like a section of like a popular song.
That's
And
so
so I
cool.
remember, yeah, it was
It's
super
so
cool. It was
cool.
like the OG MP3 for my generation. And yes, I remember I liked Angel. I don't remember who the artist is. Is it Shaggy? No, I'm not sure, but you're my angel, you're my
Yep,
darling.
I remember that
That
one. Yeah.
song, yeah. And then I also liked Hips Don't Lie. Loved that song. And then in middle school, I started kind of going more into like indie music and stuff like that. So I would listen to Lord and Foster the People and like Janae Aiko. Those were a couple of my big ones. Miguel. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. I wish I could like recall all the artists that made an influence on my sound, because I know that there's so many, but like those are some of the big ones growing up, at least when I was younger. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool too because like I remember you when I first met you, you were super into I think it was Selena Gomez, I believe was like one of the big artists
Yes.
that you were into and everything. And like, it's kind of cool because, with her, like I didn't know much about her, but like, you're a fan. I started listening to her and her music has kind of changed and went up like, in a different way from what she first started. And it's like a very cool way of like taking like, pop music, but making it into like jazz and making it really like neat and electronica cool. And that's what I love about, your newer stuff right now. You know what I mean? Like what you're doing with Tasha Malan and everything. It's got that, different kind of style where it's not just your everyday love song. It's got some neat, like weird things. Like I was hearing it on headphones that you played me the other day. And I was just kind of like hearing it and like the sounds and everything on it is just really dope. And it's like super cool on that. So where do you get it produced at when you make your music? Like how do you produce it? If you don't do it on your own, where do you go to get it done?
Basically, like my process when I'm making a song is I'll first start with the lyrics and like the melody, whether it's like me writing a poem and then I want to turn it into like a melody. I have a YouTube video on this actually that I released like during quarantine or like 2020 when I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a YouTuber. But yeah, I posted like a video on this. So sometimes what I do is if I just feel like kind of singing and like freestyling a little bit, I'll pull up like Blink type beats. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Like sometimes they'll be like Leona Lewis type beats or like Erica Badu type beats. And I'll just like I'll just find like an empty beat or like track without any vocals on it. And then I'll just kind of freestyle, like play around with it. And then either use pre-written lyrics to kind of like play around with it, or I'll just like see what comes out. And sometimes that helps me to like come up with a melody. And then I don't use like YouTube beats. I'll go into Logic and I'll kind of lay down some basic chords to that kind of go with whatever my melody is. And then after I have that, that's when my dad helps me out with some of adding like just fine tuning. He's a very like technical musician. He knows how to do, he's done all the producing and mastering. Well, actually, I'm not sure if he's done. No, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's done mastering on his albums too. I'm super blessed that he's been able to help me with that because, I tell him exactly what I want. I'm in there while he's doing it, and I'm like, okay, like he helps me come up with like a bass line, and then I'll be like, hey, like I feel like we should add like a melody, like little fills, all that kind of stuff. And then he helps me bring my ideas to life. And yeah, I'm really blessed to have that kind of support. But yeah, so that's kind of how it goes.
Sin comerte un cucurucho de mar, ya no se puede pedir más. Ay, caserita, no me dejes ir, porque después te vas a arrepentir y va a ser muy tarde ya.
And so, do you guys go to the studio, or does he just take the song and put it into, like you said, Logic, and then do it through there, or is it just his professional studio that he goes and does that at for your stuff?
He's always had like a home studio. Like his studio space is always in his home. So before his studio was his home, now he has like kind of like a home studio in his living room kind of setup. He just has like a little booth on the side. It's like one of those pop-up ones. And he has just like his computer and his MIDI keyboard and everything. And then yeah, so I send him like the little files of the chords that I come up with, and then I sometimes we lay down like a bass vocal, and then we just like go from there.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar with the home studio vibe.
Well, yeah, definitely. Like definitely on the level like that your dad's got. I'm sure it's not a Grammy award winning type sound at all. But like, man, like the sound that he puts on your stuff is like phenomenal. And like I said, like I play your songs for like friend Jessica's friends, my friends, and everyone's into it, and it's great. And
thank you.
My question though to you would be this, like the name Tasha Malan, where did that come from? Like, how did that come about? Like, cause, you said when you were a kid, you were doing, writing, you're always doing, creative poems. You said Tasha Malan was the, musical portion that you want to do, right? Did you start off with that name and doing it?
Yeah, so it's funny going back to like the whole Selena Gomez thing. She was like the only celebrity in my youth that I was really like obsessed with, and I feel like it's because I loved how she did acting and music, and she was also like Chicana, like Mexican American, and so I feel like I really identified with that kind of aspect of her. Mm-hmm. I don't really listen to her music too much anymore, but like, yeah, so it kind of came from like when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be on Disney Channel. Like, I want to be an actress. Like, I want to sing. Like, so I'd always like imagine like, what those versions of myself could be. And I remember I was like, oh, like if that's ever me, like, what is my stage name going to be? And my full name is Eliah Tumalan. So Tasha Malan is kind of just like the end of my name. If you kind of like break it up, it's like Natasha and then Tumalan. So it's just kind of an abbreviated version of my name. It's just like my little alias. So I came up with that when I was probably like 8 or like 9. I don't know. I was really young, and I always told myself like, oh,
so you
like,
had that name for a while.
Music, yeah, I was always like, if I ever make music, I'm gonna do it under my name, and I never changed it because I'm like, I'm doing it for her. I'm doing it for like little Eliah that wanted to do music. I just do it because I love it and I think it's fun. And you know, a lot of people are always like, I feel like when you put out music, there's always like this impression that people think of like, oh, like she just wants to be famous, so she's just putting out whatever. I'm like, no, I want my music to be known, but I don't necessarily want to be known. Like I don't know. It's creativity, you know, like it's an outlet for me. So that's what I do it for. And like it makes me so happy when people resonate with my music, or like they relate to the things that I talk about, or they just appreciate the production. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's super cool too. I feel like me and my dad come up with a lot of good stuff too, because his genre is completely not what I do at all. Like, you know, my influences are completely different. So it's always interesting to see what we come up with, because I'm like, I have a certain vision, you know, I have like, I'm really into like just all types of different genres. And it's kind of funny to see like, or interesting to see like where that kind of ends up, where those kind of influences cross over. And trying to communicate what I want in the studio is also like super difficult sometimes. I'm sure like maybe you've had this experience, like you're like, how do I explain that I want like, you know, and then you just start making all these little noises, and then like someone, my dad's like what are you saying right now? So it's like a whole process. But I love like music that you can tell it's not just like a single genre, you know, like it has a lot of different influences from it, and that's what I really like want to be in my music. Yeah.
And that is ultimately, I think, like why your style and how you do it's so different, because I think you have like a little bit of everything in there. With like I would say, I think I've heard like 6 different things in there. Like I said like earlier, you have like, you know, a little bit of jazz in there. You got like some kind of trip hop in the newest one, you know, with the crazy beat. It's really
some like rock elements, some like indie, some that's what I hope people like get out of it, because I love when I feel like some of my favorite artists are artists that where it's like you can't really, you're like, when someone asks like, oh, what genre are they, and you're like well, I can't really say
yeah.
I can't, it doesn't really fit in one box. And I feel
And
like that
cool.
is an epitome of like me.
And it's so cool because you'll get like that wider range of people. Another thing I noticed, like with you though, you're also an amazing artist. Like you do some really cool stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, didn't you do art from like one of the people from Orange is the New Black?
Yes, dude, you're bringing up so many things that I'm like, that's so funny that you remember that. Yeah, I remember one time I did a sketch of what was it, Flaca and I don't remember the other character's name, but the two like Latina baddies in the show. I did like a quick sketch of them, and then Diane Guerrero, the one that plays one of the characters, reposted it. But yeah, I feel like being a kind of a visual artist is really helpful. Like in school, I'm studying film and digital media. I feel like all those kinds of like skills kind of help me with my music too. Like for example, I remember when I was releasing Personal, I was like, okay, I need like cover art for this single, and I hit up this random like graphic designer on Instagram that had DM'd me or something like, hey, if you need like cover art or whatnot, like hit me up. And I already had like a sketch of what I wanted. It was going to be like my face kind of, but then like with like plants around it and stuff. Or like flames, I think. But yeah, and so I hit them up and I was going to pay them and everything, but they showed me like the draft of it, and it was so trash. Like they were definitely trying to scam me. And so I was like, okay, this is not a good idea. So I was like, I had already had experience with Adobe Illustrator. So I'm like, let me just put my little big girl graphic designer pants on and do this shit myself. And that's what I did. And I feel like it came up pretty cute. But yeah, so fun fact, I made that one because I almost got scammed on Instagram.
You know?
That's so silly. But yeah, like I feel like you could probably speak to this. Like I do really want to collaborate with other artists more, because I feel like it helps you grow so much. I like, what has your experience been with like being in bands and stuff? Because I feel like that's probably super fun.
Well, I'll say like this, like it's fun. I definitely highly recommend everybody being in a band at least once, right? But you also got to realize when you're in a band, you're in a band with like 5, maybe sometimes 6, depending on the size of the band, different personalities, right?
With different visions.
With different visions as well, and everything.
You have to learn how to work with
yeah,
a lot of different
but it makes you ultimately it will always make you a better artist. Definitely think everyone should be in a band at least once. Everyone should go on tour at least once just to check it out and see. I think everyone should also do their own solo album too, you know, because like you probably get this too. Have you ever like, you know, heard your old music, right, in the past and you're like, oh God, you know what I mean, when you listen to it, right?
Yes.
At the time you're pretty
most definitely.
Yeah, at the time you're pretty stoked on it and everything, but like there's still certain things where you were like, well, maybe this and maybe that, you know, and ultimately it's all about when you have the complete and total control of how you want it to sound and everything, you'll listen to that and back and be all, yep, that's how I wanted it to sound, you know, and
and also like I feel like that's natural too, because you know, everyone's taste is constantly changing. So it's like what you liked at one point in time, it's like a pair of socks. Like, yeah, the socks are good for a certain amount of time, and then maybe you're gonna want to try some high top socks, some no shows, like, you know. So I feel like it's also natural, and it's also fun to see like how your music kind of evolves, and like you could probably tell with my music like when in aspects of like art pop and like hyper pop and kind of like rock kind of start to come in. I feel like more with this album where like you can tell, like especially with different artists, like when you can hear other artists in their music, you're like, oh, I bet they were really inspired by blank artist or genre like during that time that they weren't maybe in their previous like this, or what had happened previously in their discography.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's super cool. It's kind of like, yeah, you can see that kind of timeline.
And do you also think though, so like being like a songwriter yourself, do you think life experience too comes into the songwriting and the changing of how things go into your music as well?
Yeah, heck yeah. My first single, it was definitely like post breakup kind of vibes, which is super super typical, but like, you know, that's what I was going through at the time. Personal was more of like a kind of like a healing song, like letter to myself kind of vibe. And then now I have, you know, I've had a lot more life experience since even personal. And I feel like, you know, as time goes on, sometimes you're gonna see like those topics in different ways. Like you could see love in different ways from different people, different lessons and everything. And then sometimes like I'm gonna get tired of, or sometimes I get tired of writing about love or like relationships, and then sometimes I want to talk about like my self-esteem or like my, I don't know, just my beliefs or like whatever, my mental health, you know, like, and then translate that. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like music is kind of like therapy, and like I know that sounds super corny, but it is, because it's like you're always like kind of like writing things out. You're always discovering more about how you actually feel because you're actually having to put it on paper. Yeah. So I think like, yeah, that's always been another reason why I really like writing, because it's like it's hard to express those kinds of things just in like, you know, just even to yourself. And it's like some people might say like, oh, just because you're talking about your problems or like your experiences doesn't mean that it's really solving anything. But when you can use it to create like a product, not that I'm trying to commodify it, but like if you could put it into a product and then you're putting it out there, it's like you have something to show for that lesson that you had. And so it's kind of like closure to be able to put something out with what you experienced. So I feel like that's another aspect of it too that I really like. Definitely. I feel like everyone can do it in their own ways. Like sometimes it's like, you know, writing, or sometimes for other people it's painting, or other people it's like running, you know, like as long as you have an outlet for whatever it is, like I feel like that's where your best like work, or you're going to become the most proud of yourself, is like when you use it in an outlet.
From your songs, do you have a favorite? Because I know everyone asks me what's my favorite. It's hard to pick one, but there's some that I have different kind of stories from, right, that like are near and dear to my heart. So for your songs that you have, which ones are your favorite and why?
My favorite songs right now are songs that are not published, so it's a little bit hard to say that. Does one that isn't published, does that count?
It counts. It counts if it's one
Okay.
of your favorites.
So the song is called Woman. So when it is released, maybe we can go back to that. But yeah, I really like it because I feel like it has some of my like best like writing in it. I so I really appreciate that. I feel like my writing is pretty strong in that one, and I feel like it really conveys like a feeling, and I feel like that's what good writing means to me. Um, and I think it's also a very like chill vibe more than like my other songs have been. It's really like the kind of song that I just want to like melt in. And I feel like that's hard to do because you would think that like having an upbeat song is hard, but it's kind of hard to get like a buttery song, you know? Like that's you have to find a lot of sweet spots. So I feel like as simple as the production is on that song, I really like it. It also has a really cool bridge with like a little like jazzy like trumpet solo, which just it sounds so dope. But yeah, I'm really excited for you guys to hear that one.
So
Because that one's my favorite right now.
the trumpet solo. Did you actually have trumpets playing on that?
I told my dad I was like, just freestyle it because you know his specialty is in like Latin jazz and like classical jazz and all that. So I'm like, if anyone can do a trumpet solo on the MIDI keyboard, it's him. So he did something really cool on that part, and I yeah, I'm really happy with it.
That is amazing. What's the song
Yeah,
"Woman" about? Can you say like what the title, like what it's about, or anything yet, or you want to keep that under wraps?
it's kind of inspired by it is a love song kind of, but it also talks about my it talks about self-esteem. It talks about meeting someone and having a connection where you're like, where were you before? That's one of the lines that goes kind of along those lines. It's also kind of a queer song, so yeah, that's the tea on that. But yeah, so I think it's really cool. There's going to be a lot of songs on this album where I feel like they show a lot of parts of myself that like maybe people didn't know before. So yeah.
And that's very brave. That's very brave to do that too, because like with you, like I was telling, I think I forgot who, I think it was Mike on the podcast earlier. I was like, oh, like the most crazy thing you can do is go out in front of people and just say, hey, this is who I am and this is me, and tell people about it. Because one,
Yeah.
you're going to be judged by the music you do, but also two, you're judged by what you say and everything too. So like, you know, musicians and comedians are two of the most like crazy people out there who go and put their
Yeah.
souls out in front of public. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong
And
with
I feel like I'm a very private person. So it's like, it is really scary to put like your whole self into a song because it's like, dang, like I'm really exposing myself. But it's funny because like I feel like in music, it's sometimes you also can't take it too literally. Like some people might be like, "Oh, I wonder like what that song is about," and it might not be like about what you think, you know? Like I think that's another thing with writing and with music. Maybe someone will think it's about them and I'm like, "Well, maybe some parts were inspired by you, but not all of them." Um,
it? Mhm.
but yeah, like for example that. So it's fun to sometimes put like little nuggets of yourself into your music, and some people will know and some people won't, or some people will understand what you're trying to say and other people it'll go right over their head and they're only paying attention to the production, which I do that all the time. So not even trying to comfort anyone with saying that, but I just think that's always fun and like exhilarating a little bit because you don't know like how much people are gonna catch.
Oh yeah, like there's been a couple of times where like I wrote a song and like I'd go on like something and someone would say, yeah, you know, the way that you took like the government as being like the specter and like this person did this and that, and I was like, oh, to be honest, I was just writing about, you know, this, but like cool, that's a lot
I
better.
was
So
just
let's
writing
go with
about
that.
like this time I went to the gas station
Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
like they take like this whole message from it. And that I feel like that's so awesome. Like I love that because it's
I
like
know.
everyone can take what they need out of it. And if
Exactly.
that's what you need out of it, then take that.
Sometimes I actually take what the other people say as I'm like, oh, dude, that sounds a lot better. I'm going to say that that's
You're like, I'm actually gonna put that in my next one. Thank you
because
for
like,
giving me the idea.
wow, you know, like straight
Yeah.
up, straight up. But dude, that's awesome. So when can we like hear this song? Like, is it going to come out soon? Like, do you have any like release date or anything?
I do not have a release date. I feel so bad because I keep talking about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna release an album, and everyone's like, when is it gonna be ready? I'm gonna be like, when it's ready, it's gonna be ready. But my goal is to have it out by next year, hopefully early in the year. I do want to release it before I graduate, so that I can get some of like that momentum with like, my community on campus and everything. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I also really want to do like little gigs, whether I'm singing my own music or like doing little covers. I do have a lot of really talented musician friends in Santa Cruz that I want to collaborate more with. So I definitely want to collaborate more in the near future too. But yeah, that's me.
Tell me some of the Santa Cruz peeps that you're collaborating with. Who are they and what are they all up to?
Well, I don't have anyone fully collaborating on the album itself, but I know that there's a couple other singers on campus that I have my eye on, and I'm kind of like, ooh, like what if I have them come onto, because I have my own mic too that I can record. It's not as professional as like, my dad's setup and everything, but I'm like, maybe I can like get like a feature, another student. I feel like that would be really awesome. And I also have some musician friends that play instruments. So I have a friend that plays the guitar. So I might hit Joaquin up and be like, hey, like, do you want to do a little open mic? There's like this place where they sell kava. I don't know if you know what that is, but like there's like a little kava bar downtown Santa Cruz that I'm like, I've been to the open mics and I think they're so awesome because anyone can just come up and like do their thing. I feel like that would just be super fun, and I feel like it would give me more confidence because, performing is also really intimidating, but I want to be able to perform my music, perform maybe like, a whole set with like all the songs on my album, for example. So I feel like even just getting that experience is going to be really good for me. So I want to make a point to do that more this coming year and up until that point.
Yeah, I'd love to say practice makes perfect, but like with performing, it's always like it's a new entity all the day. Every time you go up, it's going to be something crazy, So it's always
Yes.
kind of intense. But the more you do it, the more that you get used to the craziness of it,
Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like I've been performing so long, like I did acting and then I did like I've done a lot of little singing performances or even just like singing in front of people, like I've done that quite a bit, but I still get nervous. I remember like one time, a lot of my performances, I feel like I was like, oh yeah, like I did good. One of my most embarrassing performance kind of experiences was when it was like my the uncle that helped me with my music video, he got married. It was the reception dinner, or like the dinner before the wedding, and I was gonna sing At Last by Etta James, which is like one of my go-to like cover songs. It's one of my go-to cover songs after that point, but before then I still didn't know like the lyrics super well. I was learning it kind of last minute, and I got so nervous because it was a lot of people that I like, like my family. Contrary to popular belief, it's sometimes more intimidating to sing in front of people than people that you don't know.
Oh, of course.
That's something that's like I feel like not talked about a lot.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I completely like froze and forgot, and like I had to stop and like get the lyrics. It was so humiliating, but it's okay because all the people were like they were all like super nice about it and everything. But sometimes I still get nervous. I'm like, oh my god, am I gonna forget everything? But I've had plenty of other better experiences since then. So like I feel like it really does just take practice and just having that confidence and knowing that even if you mess up, like it's okay.
I think if you're not worried about going on stage, if you're not like nervous, then you shouldn't be doing it, right? Because
you probably don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Things
Yeah.
like very.
And I feel like another part is like not taking yourself too seriously. Like as much as you shouldn't be just like like whatever, but it's also like it's okay. Like if you stumble a little bit, like just like laugh it off, or like use that little gap of space to like say something to the audience, or like whatever. Just like not take it so seriously where it's like everything has to go like perfect and like you have to be all badass and everything. Like
with me, what I like about a live show, what I love about a live show is it not being perfect. I love to hear a different version.
Well, you can see the human in them, like in the performer. Yeah, and I feel like that like seeing an artist live makes you want to support them so much more. Like you're just like, yes, like I love you.
Yes, it's awesome. It's very, very cool. And I've seen you live. You know, you played at the the Dragon Theater in Redwood
Yeah.
City. And that was probably one of the funnest shows I've ever been to. That was like an art collective. Know that you were a part of it. It was like a collective of people.
It was a bunch of just upcoming artists just
Yeah.
wanting some experience. So the person that was running that whole collective, her name was Barbara, or her name is Barbara. And it's funny, I met her because she knew my mom, I think, in high school. And then I also got into dance when I was younger. That's another thing that I used to do a lot. But yeah, so I did dance like in a couple other areas too, but that was one of the first like times that I did dance, and it was actually like, it was actually kind of like a thing, not just like me dancing in my living room, like just being crazy. I knew her from then, and then she, I guess, knew that I did music, and so she messaged me and she was like, "Hey, like we're doing this event for like artists that are upcoming and everything, and do you want to join in?" And I was like, yeah. Like I didn't know any of the other artists going into it, but like I got to know them once I was actually there, and they were all super cool. I met like the person that produced one of like Cupcake songs, which is like a viral artist, which was really cool. And yeah, like it was a really good experience because it was the first time I had sung like multiple of my own songs in a venue like that, where it was like where I was really like one of the artists performing. So that was pretty much like one of my first like experiences singing as like Tasha Malan.
It was super rad. That was like an
Thank
awesome
you.
show.
They had like a whole dance party at the end too. I don't know if you stayed for that part, but that was so fun.
That was really cool. Everyone was getting down and dancing and everything. It was
Yes,
it's
all
a cool venue.
my friends pulled up too, and they started like getting into the dance circle. It was so funny. I
And
loved it though.
is that place still around? Because like I don't know, I never like knew that place, right? And then your show happened there, and then I went there. I was in Redwood City, right? And then I went in there, and I was like, this place is rad. And then like I don't, is it still there?
I feel like I heard someone say that it closed, but I can't confirm or deny that. But yeah, I think they did mostly like theater. I think I had been there one other time because the friend that helped me with Brand New performed there, I believe. Maybe I'm tripping, but yeah, I'm not sure if it's there anymore. But it was a really cool place.
It's a very cool place. Sad if it isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
I do know.
I know the downtown Redwood City is getting so gentrified right now, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like just big office buildings with like a cafe under it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like I feel like venues like that's where the good stuff happens. Like, that brings people from all over the place to like come, and then, I feel like it benefits them because then it funnels money into like the businesses around the venue and everything like that. But we'll see. Yeah, art brings people together for sure, especially music. I love music.
Especially music. Especially music. So, Eliah, do you have time for some quick shots?
Some shots.
Some shots, quick questions, not actual shots.
Oh, okay. I was like, how are we gonna do that? We're over Zoom.
Yeah. Apparently, no one's watched any of the episodes.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Are you down? All right.
I'm kind of scared, but yeah, I'm down.
Don't be scared. But before we go into shots, I did remember. So you're in Santa Cruz and you're doing, you're going to school and everything. In Santa Cruz, so there's a lot of artists and stuff there. Is there any artist that like, the viewers should check out that's like new and upcoming that you think is rad?
I want to. Okay. I do know some, and I'm blanking on what their name is. Damn it! I would check my Instagram too, but I don't have Instagram on my phone right now. But maybe I can get back to you and you can like plug them in because I don't want to get like I don't want to risk getting the name wrong and then like
we'll plug it in right here. This will be where I edit it and plug in the names right there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Just get back to me on the artist names. All right, so Leah, are you ready for some quick shots?
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni and mushroom. Good. All the way.
Worst concert you ever played or saw?
Okay, the first concert I ever saw was The Wiggles. The Wiggles, yes, I stand by that. And the first concert the first show I ever did was the one at the Dragon Theater in Redwood City.
Is there anything from your past that you regret?
No, no regrets whatsoever. Let me think. Let me think about that. Being hard on myself and like not thinking that I was like good enough. I don't know. Maybe that. I feel like I really don't have regrets because everything I always learn from it. So it's like I wouldn't be the person that I am without like making some mistakes along the way. So yeah, no, I don't think so.
Do you know what your life purpose is?
Honestly, I just always feel like I don't know what my purpose is. I feel like I'll find that out along the way, but I guess like my life goal is to just like be happy, you know, genuinely happy and like just have what I need and feel like I'm giving back or leaving the world like a more interesting place than I left it, I guess, or, you know, just like hoping that I leave like a good legacy around the people that I love and like I hope that they, you know, remember me well for whatever it is. So, yeah, I feel like that.
What is the happiest memory that you have?
When my family all got themselves together to celebrate my 16th birthday in Mexico, and I met a bunch of family that I didn't really have like the chance to connect with before then. And it was one of the reasons why it was like such a good moment for me was because like I didn't know how much community I had there until like that moment, because they were all together at once and they all like just like embraced me as if they had known me like my whole life, because I just didn't know them on that level yet until that moment. So yeah, that was one of the best days ever.
And what was my invite?
You had to get a flight first. Easier said than done.
What's your worst fear? What's your worst fear?
My worst fear is looking back and wishing that I did more, or that I didn't like settle for less. Like I'm a strong believer that like you can set high expectations for yourself. Not expectations necessarily, but like that you deserve like something that makes you feel good, and like you don't have to settle for things that you do or that you just accept because you think that's what like society wants, or you think it's going to be the safest option, you know. So yeah, that's one of my biggest fears, is regretting that I settled for something that I didn't feel passionate about.
What's the most important lesson you learned from your last relationship?
Dang. I'm gonna go with, I don't know, just I feel like that relationship really taught me that like no matter what you're feeling, like don't be scared to share what you're feeling, whether it's something good, whether it's a doubt, whether it's anything, because like that's where like that communication was a big lesson that I learned in that relationship. Because I'm also like I'm not really good with like verbal affirmations, you know, and expressing the way that I feel. And it was a long distance relationship, so that was a really big portion, like aspect of that relationship that it depended on. And so I feel like in a relationship, you really just need to say everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. That's I feel like the best way to have like integrity in a relationship is to say everything, even if you don't know how the other person's going to react, if they're going to feel the same way, as long as you're standing with your story.
What is your greatest strength?
I feel like my greatest strength is my adaptability. I feel like I feel like I've always had a lot of eggs in different baskets, you know. I feel like that has helped me a lot because I feel like it's made me a little bit more well-rounded. Like I've always had like different interests and like skills that I've like tried to develop. I really am glad that that's what I've kind of done along the way, because I feel like it always is going to give you more options in life, and like what opportunities get handed to you. And
what's a lesson that life tried to teach you but you feel you did not learn?
Dang, you're hitting me with these real insightful questions.
They're quick shots. That's what I'm saying. Some people think that shots, but it's really quick shots to the psyche.
Okay. Let me think. Something that I didn't learn. I feel like putting other people before myself is a big one. Like, I'm a very big people pleaser, so I feel like that has bit me in the butt a lot, is like putting what I think is like best for other people before myself, and then I end up kind of like being resentful for it. I feel like that's something that I ended up like I've learned a lot of times, and I feel like even though I'd like to say like, oh, like I already like learned that lesson, I feel like it still pops up in different kind of like ways and different people's different scenarios, but it's always kind of like that same underlying like lesson of like you can only put other people's like needs before your own for so long until it catches up to you, and then you're like, oh damn.
Yeah. No,
So I'm
very.
trying to like, I feel like that goes along well with like the last question you asked about like what I learned in my last relationship, kind of like those similar
So is that
things.
kind of intertwined, those two?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Not always. I feel like it's outside of a love or romantic context. I feel like that applies to not everyone wants help. I feel like that's another one that kind of goes along with that. As much as you want the best for someone or a situation, it's not always in your control to like fix the situation. So to just kind of like let things unfold like naturally, I feel like is another big one.
What's something that you cannot live without?
Ooh, my cats. I
They
love my cats. Listen.
are awesome cats, by the way. They're right cat. They catch like
I'm a
bats
big
and
cat,
things.
crazy cat lady.
They catch bats and crazy things. They're
iconic. They're literally superheroes. I stand by that.
What's the most recent moment that changed your life in a major way?
Dang. It hasn't happened yet, but something that I know is going to change my life in a really major way is like graduating, because it's going to be the first time where like my life is not centered around school, operating on like the school schedule system kind of vibe. And I know that's going to change everything for me, because I know it's going to change like the way that I view my schedule, my goals, like everything. Oh, so I'm kind of like anticipating how that's going to go, because that's finally going to be like, okay, whatever I do with my time, that's all me. Like no one else is responsible for it. You know, I don't have any excuses of like, oh, well, I have school, or oh, well, like I have to do this. Like it's going to be like, finally I get to make decisions for myself. And I know that's going to change everything for me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Definitely does.
Do you have any advice for me?
Advice would be keep doing what you love, right? And a lot of people, you know, school is there to like guide you on what you think you would love, right? But like ultimately just do what you love. Find something that is your calling. That's what school is. School is there to find your calling. And I think what's rad with you is you found a calling. You have your, you know, you have your music. You're a very artistic person. And I think that's your calling. And if you love your calling, that makes it even cooler. So my advice would be keep following your dream and do what you want to do, because you only have one life. One life. You don't have two lives. Maybe you have two lives, maybe you have three lives. But this life is
maybe three.
Yeah, maybe three. But this is the life that you have right now. So you might as well make it the best life you can. You found your passion. That's the hard thing. You found your passion. I think, at least. So just, you know, pour into that as much as you can and just love life. That's the thing.
Yes.
That's my advice.
Shout out to you and the rest of my family for being such a big support to me. Yeah. I love y'all for that.
My final question for you tonight would be this, and I ask everybody this in the end of every podcast, is what do you think of the kids today?
First off the bat, I think about my little sisters, and I think about how like they have access to so much information now. Like they're growing up so quickly. So I feel like they're going to be very like aware, hyper aware, more than like any of us could ever say. Mm-hmm. Even me, like growing up with kind of like the kind of rise of technology, even I didn't have like things like TikTok and all these things where they're just constantly like getting all this information all at once. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be really interesting to see how that next generation kind of like moves and see like what their strengths and weaknesses are going to be, just like every generation does. But yeah, I hope that they can just remember to be like present, not let all these kind of like this overstimulation and all this stuff that is kind of becoming like the norm now, take away from like their childhood and finding themselves in the midst of all the information that they're receiving. It's going to be really cool to see iconic people come out of the younger generations right now. I feel like it's going to be super different than what we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's definitely going to be great because, like, you know, like you said, I hope, you know, I agree with you, and I hope that they take the time to stop and smell the roses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
that's why I'd be taking my little sister's iPad in the morning. I'm like, go feed yourself or something.
Great advice.
I'm like, please, like, go play with your toys or something.
Dude, E, thank you for spending a Monday with me and getting 4 drinks deep with your Uncle Slouch and everything like that.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are an amazingly awesome talent. You are going to take over the world, and
Thank you.
I know whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna kill it. So like, I can't wait to see. So far, I'm very impressed. So just keep doing what you love to do because it's gonna be amazingly rad. And I will see you soon, hopefully.
Yes, I'll see you for another one of these family barbecues.
And we'll get 9 drinks deep.
Oh, okay. I'll be ready.